Welcome back, guys. We're back on the 308 today, but instead of focusing solely on my car, we've got my buddy John's 1978 308 GTB here in the shop. Now, this is a new to him project, but I have a feeling we can probably convince him to do some pretty wild stuff with this car in some future episodes. But before any project begins, we should get this thing cleaned up and see what it is we're really working with. We're gonna work some turtle wax magic on this thing and bring some new life back into some old paint. Once we get it shined up, we're going to compare and contrast this car to my own and see what kind of radical changes we've made over the last 11 months of build progress. It has left me shocked. It's made me realize there are only a half dozen or so parts left on my car that still bear a Ferrari part number. There's been some huge changes and some wild progress, and it's a really rare opportunity to get a stock, untouched version of my car here in the shop to compare to. So let me show you what kind of stuff has really gone on over the last 12 months now that we can have something to compare it to. Let's dive in. As said, this is my buddy John Salerno's 1978 Ferrari 308 GTB Coupe. While there are a number of important differences between this car and mine, for all intents and purposes, it's identical. This one isn't flawless, it is rough around the edges, but that makes it all the more perfect for making something unique and wholly his own. But I do think it has a ton of potential. So I enlisted the help of my buddy Ben Irving from Ultimate Shine to give this car a proper paint correction. And while we didn't go all out with it, it's going to make a serious difference. The process begins with a thorough wash, followed by Turtle Wax's Ice Snow Foam Soap. Ben lathered the car from front to rear and gave it a thorough scrub down. After the wash, the car was given a rinse and then blow dried to remove all of the water without digging in any impurities still left in the paint. From there, we brought the car inside where Ben gave it the full clay bar treatment to rid the Ferrari of any remaining particles. Admittedly, the paint looks pretty good already, but when hit with a light, it's clear that it's got a lot of swirl marks, and that's where we can really make some improvements here. It'll take some elbow grease and some hard work, but I'm pretty sure Ben can transform this paint entirely. For starters, we're going to be using Turtle Wax's Hybrid Solutions Ceramic Acrylic Black Polish. It's specifically formulated for black cars, just like John's. This stuff can remove swirl marks, fill light scratches, and is infused with a black pigment to leave a deep, glossy shine. Now, although Ben's using a DA to apply this, it can be done by hand as well if you want to tackle a project of your own. After Ben made a pass around the car in its entirety, the paint was looking incredible. But we're not stopping there. Next, we're using the Hybrid Solutions Ceramic Acrylic Black Spray Wax. This stuff's going to give us an even deeper shine and give us some surface protection while we're at it. This stuff's easy to apply too. Just spray it on and buff it off with a microfiber. The video will speak for itself. You can see just how incredible John's car looks after a few hours of detail work. Ben from Ultimate Shine has John's 308 looking like a mirror from most angles. And while the 43-year-old paint does show a little bit of wear upon close inspection, all those swirl marks are long gone. So as you guys can see, John's car came out absolutely stunning. I didn't think the paint could look this good. Ben didn't think the paint could look this good. And I think John's gonna be surprised when he sees it. I mean, this thing is unreal. This is a real transformation here. This paint did not look good when it rolled in. It was quite worse for wear. What I'm excited about at this point though is actually comparing John's car to mine. Now, I know we're not done with the 308 build yet, but we've made a number of huge changes, and we'll revisit this concept later down the road once it is done. But I think this offers a really cool opportunity with John's car here in the shop right now to take a look at basically where this build began side by side with where it is now. It's not every day that you can get two 308s together, especially when one is as chopped up as this. So let's post these cars up together and take a look at what kind of drastic changes have taken place. So we've got John's 78 308 and my own 81 308. And I figured we'd start with the most obvious difference between the two, the wide bodywork. After looking at my own wide-body car for months on end, John's car offers a reminder of just how much more subtle the factory lines of this car are. The Liberty Walk arches widen the car significantly, several inches per side. And that may be obvious on the surface, but having a factory car to compare it to has me even more excited to get this car on the ground. Speaking of on the ground, it's clear just how low the roofline of John's car is, and keep in mind it's completely stock. It only comes up to about my belly button, and mine should be a few inches shorter than this. John's car also gives me an opportunity to talk about the pop-up headlights, because I never really showcased them on my own car. This gives you guys a chance to see what they look like when they're popped up, and while I can't say they're the worst pop-up headlights I've ever seen, they're just not for me, and when we take a look at what they look like in the closed position, I think it really suits the car better, and that's why I want to leave mine closed and come up with an alternative lighting solution. While we're at the nose of the car, that brings us to the bumpers. If you remember, my car's been fitted with a 288 GTO replica, while John's car still wears the factory US impact front bumper. I had forgotten just how far this bumper protrudes from the front of the car, and while the European variant of this bumper does look a lot better, I'm happy with the decision to eliminate this bumper entirely. It also saved us a lot of weight because the factory US bumpers weigh close to 50 pounds each, as opposed to about 4 for mine. The factory interior in John's car is well suited to it, and it's a reminder that the 308 was not born to be a race car. It's got a lot of amenities, and it's comfortably trimmed, in contrast to the interior I've been working on that's meant to be Spartan in contrast. I'm really happy with how mine's coming together, and I think it's a really unique take on a 308 interior. Under the hood of John's car, we get a reminder of what it used to look like, and frankly, it's a bit of a mess. The factory cooling system is crammed into place, and the cowling area is a disaster underneath the factory cover. While mine's empty at the moment, there's not much that's going to go back into place. We're going to preserve a lot of this very empty feeling and have this car looking a lot more like a race car underneath. I know you've been waiting for it. We're finally at the engine bay of John's 308. The biggest difference between his and mine is the fact that his is carbureted, but he's been putting in a lot of work. He's already rebuilt the carbs, redone the ignition system, and is really putting in an effort to keep this thing roadworthy and drivable, even as a daily if he feels like it. For me, it's a wild ride to see this V8 back in place. And even crazier than that is just how large the trunk space is on these cars. We probably could have kept it on my build if we wanted to, but where we're going, we don't need trunks, and instead, we've replaced that area with a nice open space for a huge turbo. The engine bay and the tail end definitely represent the biggest difference between the two cars. However, I'm really starting to feel like that K24 looks right at home. So getting to see these two cars side by side and to see just how much of my car we've changed from its factory counterpart, it brings up what I think is kind of an interesting question. It's a debate that I've been having with some of my friends and a debate that I've seen go on in the comments for the past 70-something episodes. And that question is my car still a Ferrari? Now, there's really only a handful of Ferrari factory parts left on this thing. There's the body shell itself, there's a steering rack, a steering column, and a dashboard. I think that's about it, genuinely. I don't think there's anything else from Ferrari left on my car. So can we still call it one? Now, to me, I would say yes. I know that we've ripped what some people would say the soul out of the car by removing the Ferrari V8, but I think I have a Ferrari that I've just modified within an inch of its life. But then again, I do kind of understand the take when somebody else might say it's not a Ferrari anymore. I mean, the biggest, most prevalent remaining piece isn't even from Ferrari, it's from Pininfarina, and that's the body. So is it a Ferrari? Well, I don't know. I want to hear what you guys think. I think this is where the fun will begin. I want to know what your thoughts are. To me, the title says Ferrari, the VIN number says Ferrari, the badge says Ferrari, and it was born as one. I think it's just a very highly modified one, but I want to hear your take on it too. And that brings up the second question, which is why a 308? We've talked about why I started with a nice car, why I started with this car, and to a degree I've said why I chose a 308, but plenty are going to say, if there's that little Ferrari remaining, why did you pick this car? And it's based solely on the fact that I think this is one of the best looking cars ever made, bar none, hands down, simple as that. I wanted this shell with whatever guts I wanted to put in it. And I think we're getting there. We're getting pretty close. I think this car will be something special when it's done, and I'm really excited to drive it. I'm excited to look at it. I'm excited to get to spend time with it and just develop it as a car and as a platform. There's a lot for me to learn here, and I'm excited to keep sharing that with you guys too. As far as what's next on the 308, we're still waiting on a handful of parts. We've got some plumbing. We've got to get a battery box in this thing. We're waiting on a lot of ignition components, some wiring things. It's a waiting game at this point, for better or worse. But there's still projects that we can tackle, and I've got some more progress coming up in an episode very soon, so hang in there for that. And last but not least, I have one more question for you guys, and that's about John's car. The question is, what should we convince him to swap into this? Leave a comment, and let's try to convince him to do something wild with this thing. I'm pretty sure he can be easily convinced. Come up with something good, and we'll see what we can make happen. All right, I'll catch you guys next week. Thank you as always for the support. I'll see you then.